Three football supporters died in the most tragic accident for the sport ever in this country. Jimmy Hill and I were there, and it becomes the sad duty tonight for those of us normally concerned with the lighter side of television reporting to deal with a sombre subject. First of all, of course, our sympathies go to the families of those concerned. But what exactly happened? And vitally important, why? The match, a repeat of last year's FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest, was expected to be another classic. Before it began, though, there were already some indications outside the ground that all was not well. Those already inside were oblivious to these problems, but there was a huge crush outside the Liverpool end, and the police seemed to be getting agitated. FA Cup semi-finals are not a rarity at Hillsborough. There is always something of a crush, but on this particular occasion, things seemed to be getting somewhat out of hand. One young boy is released from the pressure. This was all happening about 20 minutes before the kick-off. And as you see, there were still thousands waiting to get into the ground. The mood was not violent, but it was tense, and the police were having some job. This is inside the ground, about 10 minutes before the kick-off, and this is the Liverpool end, and you see the crush. One or two people were already escaping from it, but the match kicked off on time. The players were unconcerned about any problem. They were unaware of it. But within about 4 minutes of the kick-off, the crowd was spilling onto the pitch behind the Liverpool goal. And within 6 minutes of the kick-off, a police official decided to approach Mr. Lewis and ask for the game to be stopped. Elsewhere on the ground at this stage, we thought that it might just be a pause, a temporary interruption. But you'll see that the Liverpool fans were quite agitated, explaining to the Liverpool players what was going on. The fans by this time were continuing to spill over onto the pitch. But it was a difficult manoeuvre for most of them. They had to clear the crush barrier. Mr. Graham Kelly, the chief executive of the FA, was there. The police didn't seem at this stage to be quite sure of what to do. There's one small gate at the front of that crush barrier which would allow fans onto the pitch. But fans who were crushed up against the barrier couldn't get to it. A gate further down was opened, and they could escape the pressure. Others escaped upwards to the seated stand above the terrace. They were helped by fellow Liverpool fans. Down at the front, meantime, the pressure was getting worse. More police arrived, but again, it has to be emphasized, there was no violence of any kind. Elsewhere on the ground, there was some impatience about what was going on. Nobody realized the extent of the problem, that people were being injured and killed. Again, the fans seek refuge above. Again, at this stage, there was no indication elsewhere of the extent of injuries and fatalities. But we were now getting to the stage where clearly the match was unlikely to continue. There was nowhere for the fans who'd come on to the pitch to go. By now, at this stage, I personally had heard from some Liverpool fans, having gone down onto the pitch, that their friends, their pals, had been injured. I even heard at this stage of somebody being killed, but there was no confirmation. One small boy is thankfully safe. By now, 16 minutes from kick-off, the St John's ambulance have arrived, and the first ambulance has come onto the pitch. Now, elsewhere in the ground, everybody realises the severity of the problem. Mr Peter Robertson, the chief executive of Liverpool, and Kenny Dalgleish, who experienced the Haysel disaster. The crash barrier has now been either broken or cut to allow more fans to escape onto the pitch. More ambulances arrive. And now, almost half an hour from the kick-off of the match, fans are using the advertising hoardings to help take away the injured, and now, we've learned, the dead. By now, the Nottingham Forest fans at the other end are subdued into total silence. They're aware that at the other end, it's not exuberance anymore, it's tragedy. And the managers are told that no game will be played here today. Brian Clough sympathises with Kenny Dalgleish. Maurice Roworth, the chairman of Forest, applauds the behaviour of the Forest fans.
As soon as we've got rid of all the injured people safely to the hospitals, we won't be able to do that if you rush out of the ground. We'll let you know and you can leave the stadium in safety.
The fans listened to that announcement and took their time to leave the ground. Even at this stage, many of them unaware of the fact that people have been injured and killed. This is about 4:30 in the afternoon now. The Nottingham Forest players are still there. And the sad duty of collecting and taking away the belongings of the injured and dead. And there, walking through on the right, you see the small gate through which some of the fans could escape. And the sad sight of the Liverpool colours tied to a smashed crush barrier.
What did you see?
Well, I just got them on the pitch to do what I could do was open people out on the boards and around the ground. And then just people just lying there with the jumpers they had on or the coats just wrapped down their face, left to one side, and everyone was like attending to people like was sort of breathing or attempting to breathe. And there was just kids and fellas just lying there blue.
We're in the air, went outside, and it was just shocking. It was heaving. It was bad. It wasn't as bad as in there though. And then everyone's saying to the police there was only 2 mounted horses there, and they were doing nothing. They were just riding, like riding through people, like doing nothing. They were just doing nothing at all.
Did you just open the gates?
Like, so everyone's saying to the police, open them gates, and there's an official who said, don't open the gates, and I'll quote him on that. And he opened it, and there's about 10,000 people just rushed into that middle bit. And there was nothing down for you, there was nothing down. I was lucky.
People got in the ground with full tickets.
We should have had that.
You should have had, but you haven't. And there's 5,000 people, even more, who've got full tickets that you should have, and you haven't.
Is this your worst ever experience in football?
Yes, it makes you think, what are you doing in this industry? It is, it's heartbreaking to see a youngster, he could be no more than 9, get trampled, and, I understand he died. It's heartbreaking.
Yes, okay. What happens now?
Well, I don't know. We've had an event which happened in another in another country. Now we've had it on one of our own grounds. And I think we've got to have a rethink. Not about identity cards as such in this, but there's obviously problems. mistakes, human mistakes made over admissions. People have been showing me tickets with the counterfoils. I don't think there was any evil violence today. I think it was a natural disaster.
I believe that what has happened today has done sport in general a great disservice, speaking generally, but in particular, I believe that it has put back our return into Europe, as far as football is concerned, many years. I am horrified and disgusted, but at the same time, I must emphasize the fact that I did not see any evidence of bad behaviour on the part of Liverpool supporters. Indeed, I saw the reverse. I saw a tremendous amount of enthusiasm before the game. In fact, outside the ground, I was very impressed. There was no sign of any trouble, nor was there inside the ground until the invasion took place. And people were pushed to the front because I think the gates were opened at the back. By whom, I don't know.
It was like any build-up to a big game. At 2:24, Liverpool fans are seen making the journey by foot from the station to the stadium. Kick-offs in half an hour, and people are tightly packed at the turnstile entrance to the Lettings Lane terrace. CCTV footage, which was being monitored by police that day, shows how the crowd outside was growing by the minute. Inside, the two centre pens of the terrace were packed, but people were in good spirits. But at 2:40, the first real sign that things were going badly wrong, with a young boy lifted clear from the crush. Superintendent Roger Marshall, who was a police officer in charge outside the ground, is clearly worried. He later said he feared fatalities could occur. Inside, everyone was heading to the jammed centre pens, despite there being plenty of room in the pens at either end of the terrace. 2:52, with the crowds building and kick-off drawing closer, the police made the decision to open the exit gate. Over the course of 5 minutes, 2,000 fans streamed through, with most of them heading straight to the centre pens.
And the match is on with Liverpool in red, playing from...
Just a couple of minutes into the game, it became clear something was wrong behind the Liverpool goal. It seems initially police thought it was a pitch invasion. But soon people were collapsing on both sides of the fence. At 3:06, police ordered the players off the pitch. But it still seemed they hadn't grasped the scale of the tragedy unfolding before their eyes. It wasn't until 3:12 that the first medic, a St John's ambulance volunteer, climbs over the fence onto the terrace. By then, people had already died or were dying. At the back and front of the pens, supporters were trampled in the desperation. Others tried to get out however they could. Then, at 3:16, the first ambulance arrived pitchside. But that was already too late for 96 fans.
But first, a news update.
Good evening. 93 soccer fans died in today's FA Cup disaster, Europe's worst ever sporting tragedy. Most of them were teenagers and children. They were crushed to death at the Liverpool and Nottingham Forest semi-final held at Hillsborough in Sheffield. 200 more were injured. It happened when ticketless Liverpool fans surged onto terraces packed with genuine ticket holders. They'd been let in by police, hoping to ease congestion outside the ground. No crowd trouble had taken place. The Queen, in a message of sympathy to the bereaved and injured, said she was shocked and saddened at such terrible loss of life. Mrs Thatcher said she watched the disaster unfold on television with shock and disbelief. She's called for an urgent report. The opposition leader Neil Kinnock said the causes must be discovered and the lessons learned as quickly as possible.
6 minutes after kick-off, the crush began as thousands of Liverpool fans surged into a terrace already packed to bursting point. Police, alerted by the shouts, moved in to deal with what initially looked like an unpleasant but straightforward overcrowding problem. At first the game continued, but as increasing numbers of fans either collapsed at pitchside or were carried out by police, the growing seriousness of the situation dawned. For every one supporter pulled out, hundreds, mostly young fans, were trapped on the other side of security fencing, which exasperated officers tore at with their bare hands. For some it clearly wasn't enough. Supporters who'd broken free, screaming at the police to get to those already too badly crushed to do anything for themselves. By now the match had become an irrelevance, the pitch a huge overspill area for the dead and the injured, many because of the very nature of those who follow football, teenagers and children. The BBC Match of the Day cameras, which had come to record an FA Cup semi-final, were now witnessing a major tragedy. The scenes were horribly reminiscent of the Heysel Stadium tragedy 4 years ago, when Liverpool fans were involved in a riot. This time they were the innocent victims. Ambulances moved in to behind the goal area as fans became stretcher bearers for friends and strangers alike. Outside they were as likely to be met by firemen as ambulance drivers as the emergency services all pulled together to get the injured to hospital. Many of the 180 casualties were put straight into intensive care. Those lucky enough to walk away spoke of what they'd seen.
People were just crushing, and there was a lad and his girlfriend, and they were just screaming these words where, "Please God help me." And I believe the girl died. Her face was just blue.
I seen people dead there. I was there, and I was against the bar right at the front. And when I was at the bar at the front, there was people. There was a gentleman on my arm, and he said, "You're choking me, you're choking me," and he just fell. Yeah. He just literally fell, and that was the last of him.
Back at Hillsborough, the empty terraces told of the sheer force of the crowd's surge. The faces of fans and police officers told their own stories. Not knowing what else to do, some fans only left the ground to return with tributes to lost friends. Tonight, the relentless flood of tragic stories continued to pour out from the mouths of survivors.
Me and my father ducked under the turnstile. I ducked under like the barrier to get sort of some fresh air, a bit of breathing, because he was in real trouble. Next thing, the police opened these big blue gates, the exit gates, and like everybody, including me, just went for these gates just to get in the ground, because we weren't going to get in the ground otherwise. And, well, that was it, really. My dad died in the crush.
Hillsborough is long established as a venue for FA Cup semi-finals. This year, though, there was controversy some weeks before the game when Liverpool complained they were allocated 3,000 fewer tickets than Forest, and they were given the much smaller Leppings Lane end. That may prove to be the key factor in what went wrong, rather than any fault in the safety of the ground itself.
I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with the safety element of the ground itself. It's tested every year under the Safety of Sports Ground Act, and the South Yorkshire Police are very well equipped to monitor and test the standards at the ground.
Hillsborough's excellent safety record ended 6 minutes into the game. A 15-foot exit gate at the back of the stand was opened by a police officer. Some 2,000 supporters surged through into the already packed terracing. Thousands more at the front were crushed against the 7-foot-high fences.
It was just a massive crush all to get in this one turnstile. The police didn't really know what to do, so in the end there was a gate at the side. They just opened the gates to stop the crush and let everyone go in. Even absolutely got me full ticket here. I didn't go to a turnstile.
The police are defending the decision to open the gate.
I know that the decision was taken to open the gate. I know it was a considered decision on the basis of what could be seen.
You know exactly why he took the decision?
I know that he took it because there was danger. There were about 3,000 to 4,000 people outside the Leppings Lane stand. Considerable pressure was building up, and they perceived, not just he, but other officers perceived danger to life and injury to limb by allowing that situation to be unchecked.
The inquiry will inevitably look at ticket allocation, crowd segregation and the policing of the
I
ground.
think we have to be very, very concerned about a ticket allocation which gives a very well-supported club like Liverpool fewer tickets than a modestly supported club like Nottingham Forest. I'm sure that must have contributed to the large numbers of Liverpool fans who turned up without tickets, hoping to get into the game.
Has this problem occurred before?
I think if you look back, it's happened many times at football games, but I think one particular example is the 1986 FA Cup final, where Liverpool and Everton, two hugely supported clubs, were only allocated 50,000 tickets between them. Large numbers of fans turned up without tickets, and there could have been a serious public order problem had fans themselves not been so well behaved.
The Bradford fire tragedy led to the Popplewell inquiry, which recommended major safety improvements at every league ground. This, the worst disaster in British sport, will be the focus of another inquiry when perhaps more lessons can be learned.
There are two emergency numbers for inquiries. The first one's 0742 570 800. That's 0742 570 800. And the second is a Liverpool number, 051 708 7277. That's 051 708 7277. The Sports Minister, Colin Moynihan, said it was a tragic day for football. He's now in Hillsborough, and a short time ago he spoke to ITN.
Our hearts and minds go out to all the families and friends of the dead and the injured. It's an appalling tragedy. These were great young supporters, most of them of football and their club. It was good to see the way in which so many of their friends, other supporters, went to their assistance, and the effectiveness of the special police services and the ambulance services who went to their aid. But tonight, everybody in the country must be feeling very deeply and grieving the loss. Indeed, the whole world of sport, both here and internationally, must be grieving the appalling loss of life here of young people who should.
Relatives have been at Liverpool's Lime Street station all evening, scanning the faces of returning soccer fans, anxious to see if their loved ones have survived. Andrew Simmons is with them.
The waiting started minutes after the news flashes brought home the unthinkable. Most survivors returned to Liverpool by train as their loved ones waited, unable to get through on jammed phone lines with queues at call boxes. At first they thought the death toll was much lower, but by nightfall the grim reality was sinking in.
It's a Saturday night in Liverpool no one will ever forget. Late-night revellers aren't to be seen, and here at Lime Street Station, relatives and friends of the missing wait for the next train in hope.
For this family, a reunion. For others, away from the cameras, concealed grief. Church leaders in Liverpool are already preparing for special Sunday services, and the city's Catholic cathedral will hold Requiem Mass tomorrow night.
Thought for a moment that they were showing once more the tragedy at Hillsborough. I could not believe it was happening again, even if the cause was quite different.
Tonight the wreaths are arriving at the Anfield Road ground with one simple verse among them. Bill Shankly will be glad to see you. Anfield Road will miss you. God bless. Andrew Simmons, ITN, Liverpool.
At Anfield, the home of Liverpool Football Club, officials and supporters have been gathering in shock and sadness. Mark Webster is there. Mark.
Well, here at Anfield, the home of Liverpool Soccer Club, it's impossible to put into words their feelings of loss and grief. Throughout the evening, relatives and fans have been turning up, either to leave little floral tributes, or some of them simply to stand here and weep. Some of the fans have tied their scarves to the gate, including one who's written on it, "To those who died, you'll never walk alone." Tomorrow there'll be a service of remembrance at Liverpool's Metropolitan Cathedral. For a city which has already suffered the loss of Heysel Stadium, that's bound to show a people and a city united in their grief and loss. Mark Webster, ITN, Anfield.
And that's the end of this update. ITN is on the air through the night on ITV, and there'll be a special edition of Channel 4 News at 7:30 tomorrow morning. Good night.
Yeah, I've got an explanation for what's happened here, VT. I'm going to give you a line. And the story emerges that one of the outside gates leading into that terrace was broken. People without tickets got in, were therefore overcrowding the people with tickets, and that's why the crush occurred. That should be passed on to grandstand as well, please.
Jelly, look.
I am sick of seeing on television and reading in the press these instant experts, doctors and a few lawyers who all seem to know more about our job than we do, telling us what we should have done. That if there'd have been police officers just inside those gates that day, funneling people into the outer areas, then this wouldn't have happened. And I'm saying to you that if police officers had have been in there, when this mob surged through, the police officers would have been trampled to death underneath it. You just can't handle them. And the vast majority of that lot had been drinking, the ones that were arriving late, and they will not be told where to go. They won't do anything you try to do. And what can you do?
So are you saying the fans are to blame then?
The police certainly aren't to blame. Because if the fans would do what the police are asking them to do, there wouldn't be any problem, because people would be orderly. And if people were orderly, they wouldn't have these problems. You can't crush all those people if people were orderly. It's just not possible unless you know a way that I don't.
It'll be up to the...
With these comments from the South Yorkshire Police Federation.
All I know is that when you're trying to control that number of people, when they refuse to be controlled, refuse to be directed or guided where you're trying to get them in anything like an orderly fashion, that makes it almost impossible and almost uncontrollable.
South Yorkshire's Chief Constable has now banned all his officers from commenting on Saturday's tragedy.
All I'm concerned about is finding the cause of the tragedy and making sure that such a thing cannot happen again. I welcome the tribunal, and I have never made any comment about the behaviour of fans, because the behaviour of fans and the behaviour of policemen and the behaviour of many other people during that event are matters for the tribunal and not matters for public discussion.
And at the moment, my colleague Alan Green has left us here at the commentary positions, gone down to the dressing room area. What's the scene, Alan Green?
Well, there's some chaos down here because many of the injured people have been brought through into the dressing room area to receive treatment. I've just been speaking to Graham Kelly, the Chief Executive of the Football Association, and there are unconfirmed reports that a door was broken down at the entrance to the end that is holding the Liverpool supporters. Because one of the surprising things about all this trouble, of course, is that it's obviously been caused by squashing. There are simply far too many people in the Liverpool end. And they're now trying to investigate, of course, how that has happened. The tickets are very strictly given out for FA Cup semi-finals. Liverpool, incidentally, were very angry at their allocation for this FA Cup semi-final, as they were last year. The geography of Hillsborough is such that the Liverpool fans had to go to the northern end of the ground and the Nottingham Forest fans to the southern end of the ground. And that means that Nottingham Forest actually had a greater allocation of tickets for this match. It didn't suit Liverpool last year, it didn't suit Liverpool this year, and Peter Robinson, their chief executive, certainly complained about the choice of Hillsborough as a suitable venue for this cup semi-final. But, of course, we're more concerned at the moment with the number of people who are injured. It's impossible to get any details as such. But people are being brought through into the dressing room area to receive treatment. Back to you, Peter.
Thanks, Alan, very much.
Do we know who opened the gate?
Yes, I know who opened the gate.
Can you tell us?
No, I wouldn't want to comment about that.
Did the police instruct the steward to open that gate?
You will understand that the opening of the gate and the surge on the ground are two, as I am aware, two.
Yes, I thought that.
And I think that it would be wrong for me to discuss the detail of it at this stage, because I might give the wrong impression, and that would be incorrect to do so.
Did the opening of the gate result in the surge that caused this terrible fatality?
That's what I've just said. There is nothing that I know that would show the connection between the two incidents.
Is there any question, Chief Constable, of the gate being opened in those circumstances without police permission?
No.
So the opposite of that is that it must have been opened with police permission?
Yes.
How high under police direction?
I think that I've answered your question. If
Well,
we
does that mean under police direction? Are the police in charge of
the gate was opened at police direction. I am not aware of any connection between the opening of the gate and the surge on the terrace.
Why was the gate?
Time is 3 minutes past 3 exactly. Cameraman 37 filming removal of Liverpool fans from one area of the ground to the other.
Forest, the youngest player on their side, and Steve Staunton for Liverpool. That's Hansen.